We're going to talk about the video put out. I think his name is like Charlie Cheon. The Korean that put out the basically bootlicking, white people asshole licking video. I mean, he might as well work for PragerU. I'm pretty sure he'll be picked up by PragerU, um, as white supremacy always needs new tools. Apparently, he's a lawyer in the city of Philadelphia, which is kind of weird to me because I'm like, you're making YouTube videos, you're putting this content out. Although his other videos that had to do with how he felt about affirmative action and Asian Americans, how he felt about the media and anti-Asian hate, which the video was focused on black people, right? Completely ignoring other things, the long-standing history of anti-Asianness in America coming from white people, from the Yellow Peril to the burning down, of Chinatowns in 1871 and 1887, and I've showed them before, the anti Asian, go back to China, caricatures. I mean, all the way back to the 1800s. They always show these little caricatures of Asian men with their long ponytails and their head shaved. That the kung fu the legend haircuts, right? And the conflating of economic crime, like I talked about before, with Oakland, California, and how that Chinatown is basically surrounded by poor black communities. And the economy falls out because of the COVID pandemic. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna get robbed. Like I said before, if I get robbed, if I get shot as a black man, everybody chalks it up to black on black crime. Nothing to see here. The minute a black person, and this is only like recently, right? Like the talking point about anti-Asian hate. Before, if an Asian guy got robbed, it was just a robbery. Now, because of COVID, because of all the nonsense that white people were engaging in, thanks to Donald Trump and his rhetoric about the China flu and the Kung flu and this emphasis that the COVID was just, it's all about China. It's all China's fault, whether you believe that or not. I'm saying because of all that, now any crime towards Asians is anti-Asian hate crime, which is bullshit. Economic crimes are not hate crimes. You know, if you have a person who's poor, and black people are disproportionately poor because of the history that we always talk about in this country: redlining, blockbusting, Jim Crow, convict leasing, debt peonage, denial of FHA loans, freaking urban renewal, COINTELPRO, just everything just crippled the black community, and that's why, like, when I listen, go on YouTube, listen to the rhetoric of white racists, read comment sections of white racists that typically hang out in any video that has to do with like a black guy robbing a liquor store or a gas station or carjacking. They're in the comment section foaming at the mouth. I've talked about this before, and there's never any context, given to the situation. I'm like, the white community literally did everything possible to destroy the black community. You go back and you look at the black community in the 1920s, and you go back and you look at the black community even right after World War II, in the 40s and the 50s, before they, came in there with all that, urban renewal and the 1955 Highway Commission Act, where they drove these highways directly through the hearts and the centers of black communities and business districts. We talked about Black Bottom, Pleasantville, where they ran, I-375 through it. And then you got, down there in Tampa, and I've been there, right on I-4, because I-4, goes from Tampa all the way to Daytona Beach, cuts right through it, right through Orlando. It's like it's diagonal, goes right through the Central Florida. And in Tampa, again, oh, there's a we want to make a highway. Oh, where do we want to drive the highway through? Oh, we don't want to drive it through our nice white neighborhoods. Oh, let's drive it right through the center of the black community, right? Destroying businesses, just destroying the cohesion of that community and the bonds in that community, right? Which leads to the other things that conservatives love to talk about when they talk about family and they talk about, community connections and culture and behavior, right? And it's like, again, white people as a collective did everything in their power to destroy that. Then you go into the purges, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Elaine, Arkansas, Ocoee, Florida, Slocum, Texas, Wilmington, North Carolina. These are just to name a few. And they go in there, every time black people set something up, every time black people establish something, they burn it down, right? And this is the stuff that they don't teach you in school. This is the whole problem with, in my opinion, too many Asians speak out of turn. They came here recently. I mean, if it wasn't for African Americans and the civil rights movement and the end of the Chinese Exclusion Act, which was written in 1924. So no Asians could come into the community because, again, white supremacy. They didn't want Asians here. Now all of a sudden Asians are the model minority, right? That's the argument, and they carry the water for white supremacy, and a lot of times are pitted against the black community. And I'm not even gonna, slam, the entirety, of the Asian community because, yeah, we know that there's coon Asians out there, and there's been a number of videos that have been posted, and I have to, give the younger people in the Asian community credit because they posted videos, talking about the anti-blackness that exists in the Asian communities, that comes from, their parents or comes from, the sort of rhetoric. Oh, stay away from those black people, that sort of crap that they hear probably from immigration when they come here and become a naturalized citizen and all that stuff, right? And so the parents didn't get taught the shit. They don't know anything about American history. They don't know anything about, Jim Crow. They don't know anything about the purging of black communities. Just run up on a Japanese man and ask him if he knows about Tulsa, Oklahoma. I bet you they don't. There's a video of Tom Hanks. He didn't even know Tulsa, Oklahoma happened. He was like, I didn't even know this happened. And you got to recognize the vast majority of people didn't know that happened. That wasn't something that was taught. I remember I liked social studies. That was my shit. And in social studies, they wanted to tell you about George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and if it was ancient history, there were the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, and then that's pretty much all of ancient history. And then when it comes to contemporary American history, black people were, the Revolutionary War happened. Black people were slaves. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. And then black people got sick and tired of being sick and tired in the 60s. And then Martin Luther King gave I Have a Dream speech. And then racism was over. And this goes back to what I said about, all these, people that have this racist anti-black mentality where whenever you want to talk about the context of black people in America, they always want to start in like 1985. Oh, again, like C.K. Lewis joked, anything before 1980, like, no thank you. Like talking about a black guy in time machines, like, we don't want to go before any time before 1980. Why not? Right? They just want to say, again, the black community started in 1985 with gangster rap in the 80s, crack era hit, and then, everything that we saw in the 90s and all the gangster shit and Biggie Smalls and Tupac and black men shooting each other and killing each other, that's just how they are. Right? We're not going to talk about the lead up. We're not going to talk about the CIA and the Iran-Contras dumping drugs in the black community. We're not going to talk about the 1994 crime bill. We're not going to talk about crack cocaine disparities. We're not going to talk about the war on drugs, right? And I'm saying all that's on the tail end of all the other stuff that I just previously named: redlining, blockbusting, denial of FHA loans, racial housing covenants, urban renewal, eminent domain, all those sorts of things. I mean, the whole 20th century is just rife with that shit, right? And it's like, if you're an Asian person or anybody and you want to talk about African American history and you want to ignore all that or leave that out, I truly believe that most people are ignorant, because most black people are ignorant on it. There's a lot of black people who walk around with the same type of rhetoric that this Asian dude runs around with. Same type of rhetoric. They get on the, oh, why can't you niggas just do better? And, just completely ignoring the historical trauma, the induced self-hatred, which I'm going to get into, with that even affects other people. And this rolls right into why non-white peoples tend to hate white people or have a contempt for white people, especially those people that are more learned. This is one of the things, in my opinion, why they don't want to teach, the history of what was done. They don't want to teach CRT, even though the purpose of CRT is not to hate white people, but to talk about how, race and policy and institutionalized racism create the situation and the dynamics of today. But again, like I said, especially white people, what they want is the continuation of Revolutionary War. There was slavery for a little bit, but we treated our slaves real good. Black people, got fed up in the 60s. They'll acknowledge, oh, there was racism in the 60s. There was definitely racism in the 60s, right? Even though, like Tim Wise pointed out, if you went back into the 60s and you asked white people, were there any racial problems, they would tell you no. I mean, David Hoffman, who's got all the documentaries on YouTube, he has a clip where, the news, I don't know, it was a news team. They went down into the South and they were asking this black man how he was being treated. And you could see in his eyes the corrosion, the fake laughing. He was like, oh, they treat me real good. Because he knew if he said anything else, that was his ass. And that really embodies the way in which white people, have functioned, in this nation. I think, I was giving some thought to, why is it white people catch all the smoke in the world when it comes to racism and white supremacy? All right. Why do they catch hell with it? And I came up with a few ideas, but one of them, the main one, is the fact that white people's racism is very well documented, because they documented it themselves. That's the irony of it. They don't want to teach CRT, but they're the ones that wrote it down. Because the justifications that they would use to assert their racial superiority. That's the second part. I mean, you see this in Django with, Monsieur Candy, and at the scene at the dinner table when he discovers the ruse, of what Django's character, was trying to do to get what was her name? I don't want to say Matilda. It wasn't Matilda. Anyway, Kerry Washington's character, Django's wife in the movie. And they have that scene where, Leonardo DiCaprio was talking about old Ben, who was the slave that served his father and used to shave his father. And he says right in there, if I was old Ben, I would have slit my father's throat. That was in the movie. And Captain Solo, I don't know how his uncle heard, or how his uncle got this information, but it was something. There was a white man, and he was like out to dinner or something, and he had made the point. He was like, he was just looking around, and he said something to the effect to his wife, "I don't know why they just don't kill us." He's like, the way that we have treated them, I don't know why. I don't know why they just don't kill us. And Jane Elliott said something similar. She's like, she was like, I don't know how they don't hate us. Because, the majority of black people, I would say, don't hate white people. I don't think black people run around, with the sentiment of hate. I think where white people get caught up the most is the way that they deny the past, or they minimize the past and act like the past, has no implication on today. They love to do that. They absolutely love to do that. And act like they don't understand, legacies and generational wealth. They try to pretend like they don't understand that if somebody stole something from your grandfather and then passed it on to their kids, and their kids had an advantage, how, the idea, like, example, all the stuff that I said that was going on against black people, redlining, blockbusting, Jim Crow, convict leasing, debt peonage, all this stuff. And then to sit there and act like black people should literally be in the same place as white people when you have all that stuff going on, when you destroyed communities and you ran highways through them, right? And your grandparents, to the white people today, they're not going to tell you that they did that shit. And it's another thing, like, a lot of white people think, like, first off, white people always think that white supremacy and racism is a slavery thing. And slavery ended, in 1865. And so therefore, it was such a long time ago. Like I talk about, I don't have to go back to slavery. They try to deflect with the Africans enslaved themselves. Yeah, and the Chinese sold opioids to themselves, right? And that's how the British got Hong Kong, because the Chinese just gave it to them, right? You're saying, just completely ignoring gunboat diplomacy. Again, like I said, Silver Surfer, all day, Silver Surfer. Forcing people to trade with you under duress. Oh, okay. If you don't want to give us what we want, then we'll supply your ops. We'll go in there and we'll find some scrupulous person that's going to do our bidding and serve our interest. I mean, this is what European colonialism does. It did it in India with the Nawab. I talked about this with Mir Jafar, and what they did with, having Mir Jafar, what do you call that? Double cross, the Nawab at the Battle of Plassey, which was what was the Battle of Plassey? It was like 1785 or something like that, somewhere in there, or 1787. What was it? I forget what it was. But anyway, the Battle of Plassey. I put the video in the other video that I did. Right? Like, there's no ownership. And then people, they talk about power. Power has no moral compass. There is no morality in power. There's just none. And like I said, it's like when it's like, how I want to say this. I'm getting ahead of myself, because I did want to talk about, this whole argument about slavery. Again, we don't have to go back to slavery. We can just sit there right in the 20th century. We can talk about reparations for the 20th century. Forget reparations for slavery. Reparations for the 20th century, because that's when you really, because see, when you're chattel labor, it's just slavery, and you just talk about how horrible slavery was and the abuse of slavery and all that shit, right? But see, when you get into the 20th century, you get into the policies. right? And that's what makes, that's what highlights just how ugly white supremacy is. Because these things are not just, it's not just some degree of organic racism that just naturally unfolds. Like, oh, I don't like these people, I don't like the way that they look, and then you're discriminating against them. Like, and that's how a lot of white people think what racism is. Oh, we just don't like black people, and see, those black people, they don't like us, so it's even Steven. Like that. And that's not what white supremacy and racism. White supremacy is a system designed to make and keep white people as a collective supreme. And so when talking about white supremacy, you'll have these white people that bring up slavery, like, well, I didn't own any slaves. You don't need to own any slaves to engage and participate in the system of white supremacy. Again, my father grew up in American apartheid. I can't emphasize that enough. When my father was born, he was not allowed to drink from that water fountain. He was not allowed to go to that school. He was not allowed to walk into Macy's and try on a jacket without purchasing it. We lived in a system of American apartheid, and I am his son. And so when people act like this shit is ancient history, it's not ancient history. And to say that the disadvantages that he had as a young man don't translate over to me in some way is absurd. It's absurd. Even with the success that my parents have had, right, through some of the policies that were designed to correct what happened, it's like my family was a token. It's like if 99% of black people are failing, whatever the number is, right? And when white people, when you point it out, they want to, oh, what about, like Tone Talk says, the decadent veil. They want to bring up Oprah and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and all this shit, right? Despite the fact that in every other breath, they're always talking about the failures of black people and they're all in jail and they're all on welfare and all the other stuff. But then they'll try to grab, these 1%ers and then act like the discussion about systemic racism doesn't exist because you can point, to one or two highly successful people, right? Again, ignoring how a community actually functions. But like I said, we don't have to go back to slavery. We can go back to when the policies were put in place and the logic behind the policies. Like what we saw with Robert Moses and the low bridges that go out, to Long Island, preventing black people who he knew didn't have cars because black people are poor, because America is racist. And this is the way that, essentially we've set up the system, right? And mind you, Robert Moses was Jewish and then he converted to Christianity later, right? And that goes right into the whole concept of the documentary, and I keep emphasizing this documentary, Hollywoodism. Where you had, and it covers it right in there, the Jewish filmmakers who literally left their Jewish wives and went and got Gentile women so that they could be more accepted into being white. I've talked about this before with Ben Shapiro and his bullshit when he jumps up talking about the denial of the system of white supremacy. And I'm like, so says the man that comes from a group of people who simply changed their last names. Jenny Jones' name is not Jenny Jones. Jenny Jones' last name is Stronsky. You know what I'm saying? Kirk Douglas's name is not Douglas. His name is like, Danielvich or something like that. I've gone through the list. Stan Lee. His name is not Lee. Stan Lee. It's like Stan Lieber or something like that. So if white supremacy didn't exist, why did all these Jewish people like Rodney Dangerfield change their names to be more socially acceptable in this non-existent system of white supremacy? There are tons of Hollywood stars that changed their name from something that sounded Jewish to something that sounded white, more Anglo. But it's like the other thing about what was I gonna say? It's about the owning the slaves and like even when talking about the past, so you always get well, we didn't own any slaves, and I brought this point up before, right? You get the white people, well, we didn't own any slaves, right? And they'll argue that, well, that was in the past, and it's okay. Let's just say my grandfather, like somebody like Ben Affleck, his grandfather owned slaves, right? But he didn't do it, so he's not culpable. But he is the beneficiary of his grandfather owning slaves. You can't just ignore all of the free labor and all of the resources that were accrued and then passed down, over the course of generations. I'm not saying that, he got it, he was sitting on bank, by the time it came around when he was born. But the point that I'm making is that those resources were used to give subsequent generations a leg up so that they wouldn't be in abject poverty. But I think another area where white people run into trouble is where they want to take credit for the actions of the past. I've talked about this before. When those actions are seen as positive, the accomplishments and the achievements of previous generations of white people. So when it comes to the light bulb, we did that. When it comes to the locomotive, we did that. The steam engine, we did that. Electricity, we did that. Kitty Hawk and the, airplane, we did that. It's all we. They take group collective, praise or acceptance of, praise or achievement or acknowledgement when it is positive. But then when we start talking about slavery, oh no, I ain't got nothing to do with that. Why? You were taking credit as a white person for Alexander Graham Bell and the light bulb, or Nikola Tesla, right? You're taking credit for, look at all these awesome inventions that we came up with white people. But then as soon as you start talking about the crimes to humanity and the atrocities, then all of a sudden, they run out of the room. They don't want anything to do. I didn't own any slaves, and they think that allows them, to escape collective guilt. I'm like, you just took collective credit. Now all of a sudden you want to escape collective guilt. You want to escape collective crimes, right? And that's another thing. Like white people, it's like they love to make stereotypes about everybody else, right? They love to sit there and say, well, your people are this, or your people did or didn't do this, and so therefore I can make this statement about, you as a group collectively. But dare anybody else say that about white people, and it's like they lose their shit. They absolutely lose their shit. Trying to think what else. What else was another point that I was going to make about? Give me 1 second. Oh, I remember. And this goes back to the Hill. Now, I forget what the sister's name is on the Hill, but I remember they were having a discussion about Haiti. And they were talking about, how the Haitian leaders, I think there was like two generals, Toussaint Louverture, and then I forget the other guy, Salas or something like Salas. I forget what his name is. But anyway, there's the other guy. And they were playing no games. And they pretty much killed all the white people on the island of Hispaniola, right? Even took over the Dominican side. And the white guy, what's his name? Is it Chris or something like that? The white guy on the hill. I'll see if I can find the clip. He was like, and they killed women and children. And I'm gonna tell you what stuck out to me, right? He tried to pull the women and children card. And I'm like, where was this concern for women and children when white people were snatching, black children from the breast of their mothers? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always this whenever there's going to be a response to white people's crimes against humanity and justice, or some foul shit that they do, then all of a sudden they want to talk about morality, right? They're like that kid that when you're playing, like, you're slap boxing or something, or you're wrestling or whatever, and they go, time out, 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 right? You're playing like some game where you're slapping each other or hitting each other or something like that, and when it's their turn to take a licking, they go, oh, time out, time out, time out, time out, time out. That's white people to me. Because I'm like, oh, now you want to bring up, so now that there's about to be a response, now you want to bring up what's moral and righteous and just, and that two wrongs don't make a right, and an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. You know what I mean? Like they want to bring all that shit up after they do all the damage that they've done. Then they want to talk about, black people, you should take the high road, you shouldn't want to do that. And a lot of black people stupidly fall for it, which I wish a lot of black people didn't fall for it. But I always find that part funny. But the other thing is, it's like, again, going back to we didn't own any slaves, you know what I mean? The people that owe black people are basically their ancestors, right? And that's also funny to me, right? Because a lot of these people, they claim themselves to be these Christians and shit like that, right? But, they got a big picture of their grandfather on the wall, or great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, because, unlike African Americans, a lot of white people can trace their ancestry back to, like, infinity. But it's like, even with that, from that moral standpoint, it's like, okay, so you accept the fact that your grandfather is burning in hellfire right now, right? Since you're such a great moral Christian, right? You accept the fact that your ancestors are burning in hellfire. But no, they don't think like that. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden Christianity turns into Catholicism, and, everybody can be forgiven, as long as they, acknowledge their sins or some shit like that. I'm like, what happened to hellfire? Right? What happened to, people should be punished for evil deeds and all this other shit? Right? And you'll see this, like, even in the comment sections, like, you'll have a black guy, he knocks over. I was watching some video of active self-pretension. And this black guy had like a Tech 9, and he was running away from the police. And the police, they could have blown him away, and they didn't. They didn't because, maybe they didn't want to deal with the bullshit. They didn't want another George Floyd situation, but they didn't do it. And, they shot him, I think, in the legs or something like that, which I've been advocating for forever. And they were like, put the gun down, put the gun down. He's just, like, literally trying to limp away. And they finally get him down, and he's like, the cop says something to him like, man, why are you playing, man? Why are you fucking playing? And the guy basically says his family kicked him out, and he's broke as fuck. He's like, I'm broke as hell. I don't have nothing. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, damn, man. Like, what do you got to go through to the point that you go out here trying to strong arm rob people because you're broke as hell? But I actually respected his honesty. He was like, I'm broke as hell. But I'm saying, usually, the white people in the comment sections, whenever you see, like, black criminality and stuff like that, they always go into it's all about, he's evil, burn him at the stake. Right? They create this whole system, right, that has existed, since the conception of this nation, to keep black people at the bottom, especially black men, marginalize the fuck out of them, right? All type of wild stereotypes, right? Unemployed, underemployed, can't get a job, can't support your family. Black guy goes and resorts to crime, and it's like he's resorting to crime to, put food on the table, maybe he's got kids. A lot of these guys have kids. Um, and the white people, like, they condemn them. Like, they don't even bat an eyelash. Throw that nigger in jail. Give him the electric chair. Hang him from a tree. All this shit, right? But then when you get to talking about their ancestors and slavery, it's like totally different conversation. We don't want to talk about what punishment. They're dead. It doesn't matter. But I'm like, yo, but you got all this energy and you got all this smoke for this black guy, who's stealing, something that he can pawn or something that he can sell. Right? You're getting on him, right? And it's like, I'm like, aren't you a Christian? Wasn't there a whole passage in the Bible about somebody stealing a loaf of bread and all that shit? Right? And I'm not saying everybody's, stealing just to get, a loaf of bread, but there is an aspect of, people who basically get sick and tired of the system and they want to have more. They want to have, live with some dignity. And then they'll turn being a criminal into, a career, so to speak, especially when you get into organized crime. You know what I mean? It's the same situation, but I acknowledge that it's slightly different. It's more sophisticated. But what was I gonna say? I just noticed that they never keep the same energy. And going back to the Hill and the whole Haiti conversation, when that white guy, the blonde dude, pretty sure he's blonde, when he was up there and he was like, and they killed the women and children, the part that really stuck out to me, is like, okay, well then, who is supposed to be punished then for some shit going down, right? Because you say, I didn't own any slaves, I didn't do it, right? Even though you're the beneficiary, right? I didn't do it. Okay, but what about the people who actually did it? Like, what do you think? Like the freaking, you ever see that picture in the museum? I forget what museum it's at, like a Museum of Natural History or Smithsonian, whatever the heck it may be, right? With the slave and he's sitting in the chair and his back, he's got all type of whip marks on his back. Like those whip marks didn't get there by themselves, right? So I'm saying you see the evil. You say, that's fucked up. They should be punished, right? Because this is the argument that they make, but they don't want to go into the detail of what them actually being punished is. No, they should be killed. Nat Turner style. They should be killed. And that's exactly what the Haitians did. So why are you feeling sorry for them? Because they're white? You see, the whiteness gets in the way of the justice. You know what I'm saying? God, smited Sodom and Gomorrah for homosexuality, right? Just smite, right? Right? God is ruthless. Right? This Abrahamic biblical God that y'all follow. Right? But when you look at it, right, even those people say that they're Christians, it's the whiteness gets in the way of the objective morality or the objective justice. But then when you change the lens and then you make it a black person, immediate justice. It's going to be a hanging tonight. Right? They want immediate punishment. But when it comes to white people, it's totally different energy. And we've seen this time and time again. Time and time again. I remember they had, I forget what it was. Some black kids did something. It's like a group of black kids, and they did something, and somebody died. And it was like a similar situation. I can't think what the black kids did, but then there were white kids, and they were throwing snowballs off of an overpass, and they killed a man. The snow, they were like, it wasn't a snowball. It was like a frozen ball of ice. They threw it off of the overpass. And obviously a car moving at like 75 miles an hour, and you have this, 30-foot drop, right? The ice boulder smashed through the glass and killed this man, killed a white guy. It was like 5 white teenagers and it killed a white man. And I'll never forget when I went into that comment section, and I forget what the other black teens did. They did something similar and they killed somebody, but the comments were completely different. I mean, just absolutely different. The black kids, they were thugs, they were demons, they were monsters, they were all this shit. When it came to the white kids, these teenage punks, the language was super mild, you know. And this is the behavior of white people. It's like, I got a novel idea, right? If white people don't want the label of being racist monsters, then why not just, I don't know, treat people better? How about that shit? Nah, but they're not doing that. All they do is deny and double down. And the more they talk, the more they expose themselves. The more people can see the inconsistencies. You see? And the more people get pissed off at them, which in my opinion is very dangerous for white people. When white people want to talk about, like this, what this Asian kid was talking about with, it's about revenge. The vast majority of people don't want revenge. But, in terms of the open anger towards white people, I definitely think that that's growing because white people just keep doubling down and denying and all that shit. Even going back to that Haiti model, and this was something that Cap, mentioned before, but it's like, you gotta to sit there and think. And this is the whole thing with like white people online trying to claim reverse racism and that they're the victims now and all this bullshit. You like, something's gotta be wrong with you. That you think that you're going to mistreat people in perpetuity and that they're A, not going to hate you, and B, somehow going to love you. And not to mention that, but you got to also recognize what is actually being said in terms of what white people as a collective with that mindset think is supposed to be your position. To think I can mistreat this group of people and they will either not hate me, but they'll love me. You got to think of the sick pathology when it comes to that shit. And even when it came to the Haitian Revolution and the Haitians killing all white people, women and children. It's like, what are you doing operating like you're in a hostile environment? You're outnumbered however many hundreds to one. What are you doing in a forward area with women and children any goddamn way if you're so concerned about that shit? Just like, you really got to think about that shit. How are you out there, you're just so emboldened that you're going to mistreat these people. You're going to sit there and you're going to tie a slave to a tree because he didn't cut up enough sugar cane that day, and you're going to whip and beat him tied to a fucking tree in front of his family until he dies. Right? How many times do you think the slaves are going to see that and not want to fucking slit your goddamn throat and put your head on a fucking stick? And this even goes into let's talk about Mr. Charlie Cheon or whatever his name is, right? With like the Koreatowns, or even let's talk about Asians operating in the black community, where they show up, set up shop, right? Going back to the redlining, black people, we can't get loans, but Asian people somehow magically get loans to set up businesses right in the middle of the black community, which is where they typically set them up when the parents first come here with their broken English. And they vacuum money out of the community. And not only that, there's a lot of disrespect that goes on. There's microaggressions that go on. At first it's, oh, they showed up, okay, they're servicing the community, no big deal. But then, following you around the store. I mean, this was even covered in Menace to Society. What did the Asian dude say? He was like, I feel sorry for your mother, right? And that got his ass killed in the movie. So this type of shit goes way, way back in terms of them operating the community. There was a young girl in LA that was killed by they were fighting over some chain. She swung on the Korean lady. Korean lady pulled out a revolver and shot her dead right there on the spot. That was before the LA riot. So there's lead up. It's not just a matter of, oh, us black people, we mad because you Asians are so successful, right? Like the garbage that like that freaking Asian men like this dude, and even white people want to sit there and throw up with their racist rhetoric. I'm like, white people only co-sign you when it's about anti-blackness. Any other time, it's the yellow peril. Any other time, it's negative stereotypes about Asian men's sexuality or their lack of virality, which I never understood. How the fuck you go from samurais on horseback, you know what I'm saying, freaking chopping people's heads off, talking about Japan now, right, to, freaking like Dave Chappelle made the joke, they bombed Japan all the way back to Hello Kitty. Like, how do you go from warriors, that if you die, if you get captured in battle, you will sacrifice yourself with seppuku, you know what I mean, or Harry whatever you want to call it, right? Where they take a little short knife out and they stab themselves, and then, and then another samurai comes through and then, lops their head off and shit, and that's an honorable death. He had a good death, right? How do you go from that to, pocket protector Asians, going to, some university in California and you can't get no bitches? Like, how the fuck does that happen? You see, but again, anti-blackness, Asians are the best. Any other time, you know what I mean, Asians have small dicks, or Asian men have small dicks, and we, us white men, we can come through and take their women at any time, right? Like, it's weird, and for an Asian person to not see that is mind-blowing to me, right? But anyway, getting back to the whole, the animosity and shit, there's been animosity, between, the Asian community and the black community in terms of Asians operating businesses in the black community, vacuuming money out. Now, I'll tell you what I've noticed as of, I'd say over the last 4 to 5 years, where the Koreans got smart and they recognized the best way to not have their business be fucked with, if something happens, again, the powder keg goes off, is to have black people who are working in that shop. Because then there's money coming in or being vacuumed out of the community, but some of that money is coming back to like the girls that are being hired in the salons and stuff, like, not the salons, but that are being hired in these places, in the wig places and stuff like that. I mean, it's a travesty that black people don't control, operate anything that has to do with black people's hair, but again, white supremacy and the beauty standards, and black women feeling the pressure of conforming to those beauty standards, and even black men subscribing to those standards, right? And then this also leads into even all of the non-black people that were also in the video that Mr. Charlie, put in his video, right? Because he had Asians that were talking about anti-white. He had Native Americans that were talking anti-white. He had some other, minorities that were talking anti-white. Like, it wasn't just black people that he had in the clip. And it's like, Again, where do white people get off thinking that anybody is supposed to like them or love them with the damage that they've done? The self-hatred that they have caused. Oh, you got to be fair like me, making themselves the global standard. I mean, like I said, they're like a cruise liner that, I mean, they don't care, what they knock over in their wake. The solipsism is insane. So, they come through, they do what they do. They're affecting, other, people and how they view themselves, right? And, once people recognize like where the shit is coming from, like I saw a clip it was a clip on Instagram, and it was of they were talking about what is the ideal nose. And it was a clip of, I don't know what it was on, Fox, something, but anyway, or CBS News, I don't know what it was. But they had a clip, and the white lady's up there talking about how, what's the woman's name? Not Meghan Markle. The freaking the what's the woman's name? The queen now. The freaking no, not the queen. She's not the queen now. But Prince William's wife, right? And what the damn is her name? I see how terrible I am with names. But anyway, they're like, oh, and if your nose is 105 degrees, the tip of your nose, if it curves such and such, she's like, you have a beautiful face. And then the camera cuts to the black woman, and she's got this look on the face like, fuck are they talking about? And then the camera goes to the black dude, and he's even looking at the shit like, where do y'all come up with this shit? But the white lady, she's just continuing to talk, continuing to make her point, just oblivious. It's like we've already dealt with this shit. Black is ugly, black skin is ugly, black hair texture is ugly, all this shit. And I'm saying, and it's not just black people, Asian women are out there changing their eyes and shit. The number one product in Asia and India is the bleaching creams and shit like that. Same in Africa and the Caribbean, all this other stuff. Like, where do you think that you're going to do all that type of shit, make everybody feel bad about themselves, and people are going to love you? And that's just the beauty part. That doesn't even get into all the other fucked up shit. The neo-colonialism, the putting despots in power, which undermine other nations, all this stuff that goes on, right? Funding and supplying other people's ops. Like I said before, Africans don't manufacture not one weapon. Where is Boko Haram getting all these AK-47s and RPGs from? Where are they? Who is supplying them? Because their supplier is not in the continent or on the continent of Africa. All this meddling that goes on, right? And if white people want to say, oh, well, see, I mean, it's because we're smart and we know how to position ourselves, for power. I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, y'all know how to manipulate the fuck out of something. I'm like, I don't know where it says that that's okay in the Bible, since y'all like to run around and talk all this Christian shit. That's one of the main reasons why I can't fuck with Christianity or any of these Abrahamic religions. They're bullshit. That's not how the world works. That's not what people do. God ain't throwing a fucking lightning ball opening the ground up. Nothing. It's all this white supremacy and all this bullshit. It's still going on. And quite as it's kept, I feel very much similar about Islam and because let them get away with some shit. They'll run around on some caliphate shit, trying to turn the whole world into Islam. You know what I mean? But all the benevolence and beauty of any of these fucking religions is bullshit. Because what it's really about is about power. It's about power and control and positioning. And if they can get you distracted and focused and caught up on any other bullshit, they'll fucking do it. And that's one of the main things I wish black people would understand. Power has nothing to do with morality. And black people need to stop allowing white people to try to shame them with the idea that, black people need to operate on a moral standpoint while white people don't. They just give it lip service. I really need black people to understand that shit. But we don't. You know, the main thing that I see that a lot of white people have a problem with is um they don't want the label. And I'm like, nah, you get the label. You want power, you want to manipulate and all. The label of colonizer, the label of evil, the label of destroyer of worlds, the label, right, of monster and manipulator. Now you get that label. You get that label. That is your legacy and history that your people left behind for you. You get that label. If you don't want that label, then again, I suggest you go out there and you start treating people better and you start being more inclusive, right? But look at the fight internally in the white community. Where you got so many white people, the word inclusive, oh my God. Then you get the people, the freaking fake liberals that jump up and, it's they only want to be inclusive symbolically or, on a magazine cover or some shit like that, but they don't want to be inclusive. You see? I mean, even Cap has pointed this out in New York where they got two entrances. They got the whole thing with like with affordable housing and like the first 10 floors of a high-rise building. That's all low income, right? And then above that is like all the wealthy floors and whatnot. And the higher up you go, the more expensive the apartment or condo or whatever it is, right? But these people didn't want to rub shoulders with those people. Nah, we're gonna separate it out, right? I don't want to see black faces when I walk into the building. I don't even want to see them, right? These are your liberals, your yuppie liberals. And that's another thing. I think that one of the things that your average proletariat white person, misses is like, your white people who live out in rural America. And what I noticed like with rural America, it goes one of two ways. Either the people are like genuinely fascinated, because they grew up in an all white town. They don't know anything, but they don't have any negative preconceived notions because nobody really put that in. Oh, they might have some shit from their friends that their friends said, but they never got down with it because the hate wasn't something that was taught in the home. But then you get these other white people. They don't even live around the minorities that they claim to hate. They don't even live around them, right? And it's like, they have like this hierarchy, blacks at the top of the, who they hate list, then probably Muslims, underneath that because of 9/11. I just got a phone call, yesterday about an incident. I got a colleague of mine who, or not to say a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, who he runs a business, and some racist shit popped off. And we talked about it, but one of the things that he expressed is, it's like he's basically out in where there's nothing but white people. And he's like, I've never experienced so much hate in my life. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, they're always making comments about me being foreign. Like, he's like, freaking, I was born in New York. Like, the fuck are they talking about? And I'm like, And see, me, I'm listening to him because he's getting his nigga wake up call, even though he's not black, right? Brown guy. So the white people are hitting him with all this stuff. And I'm not going to get into too much of the detail, but some stuff was said that was really foul, really, really foul. And one of the things that he pointed out is he's like, what I really think it comes down to is the fact that the people who look like him are doing better than a lot of the white people that are in that area. He's like, they don't have shit. He's like, even the car I drive. You know what I'm saying? I'm over here driving a $90,000 vehicle, and they're over there driving some bullshit. But that's because he owns businesses, and they're, on that model of, what you got to do is you got to get a job, and you got to go in there and put your 30 years in. Hopefully you get some full medical and dental, and then you get your pension, and then you retire, and then you go fishing and play with your grandkids until you die. Right? That's their whole view on how you become a successful American. That model has completely changed and died, and many of the foreigners, or first generation, second generation, they have they come here with a merchant mentality, and in large part it has to do with the fact that the parents don't speak English, so the parents get involved in the business, and the families forks two different ways. Those that are good in academia, they go to school. Those that are good in business, not great in academia, they will always have the business. And it's almost like the Godfather and the Michael Corleone, the whole situation where the one brother went to the military and then became a lawyer and all that other shit, right? And while the other one was running the family, right? And so that way, when they finally, come together, you like, I don't need a lawyer. My daughter's a lawyer. I don't need, a certified public accountant. My other brother's an accountant. You know what I mean? This is how they're getting down. And I really wish black people were getting down like that, but we got way too many issues that are rooted in white supremacy and the things that were done to us. All these other communities, all these other people, they came here after 1985. You know what I'm saying? They came here after black people kicked open all the doors, for them, but, we, or damaged in the process, or, you want to talk about some real retaliation, essentially, white people sabotaging us because of, all of that, the immigration, the integration, the desegregation, the fighting, for positions of leadership, positions of power, and them doing everything in their power to shut that down. I find it interesting, like what's going on right now with like the state of New Jersey and concealed carry permits and the city of New York, because, or the state of New York, I should say, because there is a parallel between, the Second Amendment is a constitutional right, and the New York and New Jersey are like, what we're gonna pass these laws because we're not gonna recognize what the court said. And I'm like, that's the same thing that went down with Bull Connor. That's the same thing that went down with the Board of Education. They had to bring in the National Guard. It's very interesting to watch it all unfold. It's like, it's like you're just going to deny these people their rights. But I'm saying, that's what white people did, man. I mean, everything that you can pull up the photos on YouTube. And I'm saying, those people. I was looking at the Forsyth County, Georgia, which I don't think any of those people live there anymore. I was talking to somebody who's from Georgia. They said all those people moved like northwest, to other areas and whatnot. But Forsyth County was the most racist county in Georgia. 1912, they ran all the black people out of there. Land that was lost. Same thing, like I said, that happened in Ocoee, Florida. Ran them out of there. What else they also ran black people out of? A city in Kentucky. It's right outside Lexington by the name of Corbin, Kentucky. Go look that one up. Right? Basically, I think it was a white man had gotten a fight with two other white men. They blamed it on a black man. And then basically the white people just told the black people they gotta leave, left their house, left their property. You know what I mean? Like how much does that set you back? You know what I mean? You're a black person. You're in the South, right? You probably can't read, can't write, but you work hard, you grind to have a little bit, whatever it is, a shack, whatever. You have something, right? I'm sure some of the people, they were renters, they didn't own anything, but I'm saying for those that did, for those that were able, like what we saw in Tulsa, and then to have somebody run you out of there, and then you got to start over at zero. You got to start over at nothing. Nothing. How far does that, how far does that set you back? Meanwhile, the other people, they gain. It's called adverse possession, because that's what happened to a lot of the land and properties, after the black people were ran out. You just go in there, you set up there, you say, hey, okay, I'm gonna take this land, and it transfers over to you after a certain period of time. It's called adverse possession. And they can see it on the books, because when they open up the books, they see, okay, this white man sold the property to a black man, and then the black man, there's this gap, and then it goes to a white man, but there's no bill of sale. This is the type of shit that happened. And we got to sit here and we got to listen to a Korean dude or a Chinese dude or Japanese dude talk they shit, and the motherfucker literally, came here when he was 11 years old, knows nothing about American history. And we got to sit here and listen to them talk about, how, white people good, black people bad. We got to sit here and listen to this bullshit. They don't know anything about American history, but we got to sit here and listen to this shit. This is why, again, CRT is needed. Teach the real history, right? Talk about COINTELPRO. Talk about how the FBI was involved in the assassination of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right? Talk about how the Chicago police killed Fred Hampton, right? Talk about COINTELPRO. Talk about Richard Aoki and Larry Threadgill, who was the FBI agent who had Richard Aoki as the informant of the Black Panthers, who helped arm the Black Panthers to facilitate an armed conflict between the police and the Black Panthers so that they could shift popular opinion against the Black Panthers and say, oh, see, they're cop killers. All right? But see, your average Asian person knows nothing about that. They just go with the African American history started in 1985, and that's it. Black people just don't do. That's all there is to it. Like I said, white people, they did everything. I don't know why white people complain about Ray Ray and Pookie. I don't know why they complain about niggas. I don't know why they complain about it. Because I'm like, you all created it. You created the situation and the story. It's like you did a whole bunch of fucked up shit and then stirred to desired thickness. And you're sitting there talking like, oh, I don't know why these black teenagers just won't do. Why are they carjacking? And like I said, you see this same attitude now. You see the same thing with why Undead Chronic is making videos about boomers and Dave Ramsey. See, the problem is y'all just need to pull yourselves up by the bootstraps, right? Even though, right, the corporations, and capitalism has basically run its course, and they don't want to pay anybody. And they'll sit there and they'll talk about how they want, traditional, heteronormative, cisgendered, nuclear families, right, that have a Christian moral framework, but then they don't want to pay men to be gainfully employed, to actually be in the position to be a father and be respected, and to be able to lay down a proper foundation, for their family, a proper economic foundation, or a foundation that's rooted in economics, meaning the purchase of a home, food, clothing, and shelter, right? Comfortably, right? All these, people that you get the people that aren't in the position of power, like they're not the corporations, they're just other regular white people that just, we love the Bible. Unless you're talking about black people, then we just go AWOL, right? And then you got, the other people that are like higher up that actually are in the position, but they still don't want to pay people, right? And this is just white people. And this goes back to, what my friend was telling me about, the white people, where he's at, that, they feel some type of way. Because there was no way for an Indian dude to be doing better than an average white guy in 1950. There was just no way. He worked at General Motors, the Indian guy, Apu, motherfucker, you just got here and your English is fucked up, right? So, it's like, yeah, but we're talking, 60 years later. It's like shit has changed. People making money online, gig economy. The Indians are going into areas where people, they have no clue how much money is being made over there. Shit like Airbnbs and all like that. They have no clue. These you think those redneck white people know anything about that? They don't. Or rural white people, they don't. Like motherfucker, like you got a dirt driveway, yo. Like you don't know shit. like straight up, you got a dirt driveway. Like just niggas, just stop talking. Stop talking. But like I said, there's way too many inconsistencies when it comes to white people and their racism and anti-blackness. Like I said, I'm not even going to jump on Asian people like that, on this video because, it's just the timing. Like I said, if you type in Asian community, anti-blackness, there's videos that go as far back as like 5 years ago was like the oldest one that I saw. That was just at a cursory glance. I was like, this has already been covered. And there's definitely a number of videos that I probably already saved because I can picture the face of the women and the men, that were talking in the video. But honestly, I think I've seen more women that are speaking on anti-blackness in the Asian community than I've seen men. Definitely more women than men. But it's been a topic that's been covered. And like I had a guy, I didn't even know he was Asian. He admitted he was Asian. He's been follow, in my comment section, I've seen him. But he admitted that he was Asian, and he was just like, yeah, like there's a lot of Asians. They're trying to get a pat on the head from white zaddy and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, so he's just confirming that it's a thing. And I think, that's another aspect of white supremacy. It's like you'll get coons in the Asian community, you'll get coons in the black community, you'll get coons in the Hispanic community. Like there are coons everywhere, literally everywhere. That they'll just carry the water for white supremacy. They're looking for a pat on the head. And it's just something that we have to deal with, unfortunately. When discussing or dealing with white supremacy. But I don't let white people off the hook. It's not even a matter of hate. It's just a matter of if you don't want the label, you got to treat people better. Point blank, period. And I'm saying it's not just some overnight shit like, I don't know, you did some random deed. Like, no, it's gotta be consistent. But to me, I'm like, that's asking for too much because I'm like, I look at the way that white people treat themselves. Treat their own kids. Let's go with that one. With all this stuff going on with the economy and whatnot, all those videos that I showed, you know, telling young white men that they need to, that there's other people who have managed poverty better than they have. I'm like, we're managing poverty. That's what the discussion is about. You know what I mean? So after seeing those videos, I got a little different attitude, on, how organized white supremacy is, especially when it comes to, their own children, but what else was I going to say about, what was I going to say? There was something about treatment. It was something else. It's right at the tip of my tongue. I can't think. Hold on. Damn, 75 minutes. Yeah, but anyway, I need to end this video. But yeah, if you don't want the labels, you gotta treat people better. It's like just like when we talk about colorism. It's like you gotta acknowledge beauty. If you don't want the label of being a colorist, then you gotta acknowledge some dark skinned beauty. You can't just be like, oh no, preferences and all that other shit. Nah, you gotta acknowledge. Okay, well, you don't want to. None of them are attractive. Okay, well then wear the pin of being labeled as self-hating, or wear the pin of being a colorist, whatever it is. And the same thing goes for white folks. You don't have to. I remember what I was going to say. You don't have this whole idea that you had that in order to participate in racism and white supremacy, that you needed to be a plantation owner in 1855 is bullshit. It's fallacy. It's a fallacy. Didn't they get the who's the guy, a coach of the what football team is he a coach on? Was a guy's name, Jerry Jones, whoever it is. They somebody said that's him in the diner that they were trying to to integrate or something like that, and had the black kids there. We all seen the pictures, white teenagers dumping ketchup on their head. All right, this is the mindset of this country. Like it's been this way. This nation was founded in racism, white supremacy. You know what I mean? And that shit should just roll off of the tongue of people, because it was. It wasn't founded on racial harmony. It wasn't founded on color blindness. It wasn't. It was founded on a formal system of white supremacy that was baked into the system. When you talk about miscegenation laws to keep white men from sleeping with black women in their slave quarters and shit, right? Because the powers that be did not want to create a racially ambiguous, middle class, like some other places did, like they did in South Africa, or like they did in or tried to prevent in Australia. Again, go watch the movie The Rabbit Proof Fence. Like these are whole concepts and philosophies behind, the system of white supremacy and what they did. And I'll acknowledge, I don't think your average run-of-the-mill white person knows of these things. Again, we can't have a CRT conversation. But the oligarchs that put that shit in place, like even go read up on Bacon's Rebellion. Go read up on what the elites recognized after Bacon's Rebellion and why Bacon's Rebellion was so important and why they had to approach it from a divide and conquer standpoint thereafter. Okay, these folks, this is calculated. It's not just a matter of just some organic racism. See, that's what the proletariat thinks. That's what your everyday working class white person thinks. That's what they think when they think racism. They think, number one, they think racism is about hatred. It's not about power. When it's about power, and then they really don't think that that it was set up, to actually be a formal system of white supremacy.
They really think like, no, that's not what it is. It can't be. That's not. Yes, that's what it is. That's why it was set up that way, to maintain that. Now that doesn't mean that white people don't have classism, within their ranks. Okay, but again, other people who are not white are here to be exploited. That is the mindset. And I'm saying to sit there and you want to really, look at the pathological mindset of these white folks that, orchestrated, this shit. Again, Operation Northwoods. Look it up, read up on it. If they're willing to go to those lengths, you know what I mean? Or even things like the Tuskegee experiment. We're going to inoculate these black people with syphilis. We have the cure, penicillin. We have the cure. We're gonna inoculate them with syphilis, and then we're going to just watch them suffer and watch them slowly die and whittle away. We're going to sit there and watch them develop neurosyphilis. We're going to watch them develop gummas. Look up what gummas are. We're going to watch this happen. You see, that's evil shit. That's not organic casual racism. No, that is disgusting, nefarious, evil racism. And the thing is the white proletariat, y'all go along with the shit. But you don't have the details on how sophisticated, the system of white supremacy, at least at its original conception, was. We talk about all this stuff with Herodotus, Socrates, Plato, saying that ancient Egypt was black and it was called Kemet and the land of the blacks and all this, and how they got all their knowledge from Egypt, right? Right? The library at Alexandria, which only was renamed after Alexander the Great, went in there, right? Because the Arabs and the Europeans came later. Right? But they had to, again, when you see those, even the art from the 14th century, 14th, 13th century, and the way that they depict black people in those paintings, they're painted with dignity, they're painted with respect, they're painted like they came there with knowledge. But see, if you're trying to have a market for slaves, right? And you're trying to enslave a group of people. No, you can't have that. You can't have, a black civilization supersede a European civilization. You can't have that. That's Dr. Zaius in the cave with Charlton Heston and the speaking dolls and shit. And these are dentures, and these are glasses that he was wearing, and this, and the doll talks, mama, right? Yeah, motherfucker, where's your talking freaking orangutan doll? Oh, you ain't got one. You see? So they had to go in there and dismantle. And you see this time and time again with like the way that certain shit was marketed in order for people to go out there and buy it. And you're like, what? Like when you look up Banana Republic and what the US did in Guatemala. Look at what they did. Read up on it. Read up on the Chiquita banana lady and how they basically marketed bananas to the American people and put it, gotta get you a banana split. Who the fuck eats a banana? Who goes into to like Cold Stone and goes, I'll have a banana split? Like, who says that? Who does that? You know what I mean? Like, who would even think to do some shit like that? Like, you know what I could go for? That's right, some vanilla ice cream and a fresh banana. Like, who the hell says that shit? You know what I mean? But, it was created, it was fabricated, but they were freaking exploiting the fuck out of all those people in Guatemala. You know what I mean? look at the massacres in Colombia, you know, that facilitated by the U.S. Massacre. They went on strike and all this other shit. Massacres. It's all there. And so this is in the pattern of behavior of Europeans. But see, can't say that, right? Even though the evidence is there, right? And that's the other thing. Like there's enough, because white people documented their shit so well. The patterns of the like what white people say about black people, it'll either be conjecture or there'll be no context, given to it. Again, black people's history started in 1985. But then when it comes to white people and black people say something about white people, they act like we're pulling it out of the void. I'm like, no. We got documented, history and track record on your shit. And I'm saying the other thing is when it comes to doing things to certain people, white people know all about that. They're the ones that came up with the psychology books and the Pavlov's bell, or Pavlov's dog. You ring the bell, the dog starts saliving and shit, or salivating, right? All this stuff, right? The damn Stanford prison experiments and shit like that. Oh, they know all of the tricks. Even now with video games and getting kids addicted to loot boxes and gambling and dopamine releases and Fortnite and looter shooters and battle royales that are heavily monetized. Oh, they know everything. Or the cell phone games with the timers on it, to where they you can progress and then you hit a paywall, and it's like, well, if you buy 13 gems, then you can play for another half an hour and you can upgrade your castle to this and da 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 da. Clash of Clans, right? Empires, play now, right? All this stuff. It's all heavily monetized. Download it. The game is free. Yeah, free to get your ass in the door. And then once you're in the door, they look at this deal for a limited time only, right? Get you to open up your wallet, buy some shit, right? Then show you another player. Look at him. He's level 99. You're only level 1, right? You see all these little commercials that pop up. And my favorite is the one that acts like people can't count, right? Y'all seen that shit? It's like, what is that shit? Is it League of Legends? What is that? League of Legends? I don't know what it is. But it's got the white guy, and he gets thrown into some shit with a whole bunch of different cages with numbers and shit. And he's like level 1, and then he's level 3, and then he kills the level 2, and then he becomes the level 5, and then he goes, and then he kills the level 4, and then he becomes the level 9, right? And then he goes to the next one, and then for some reason, somewhere in there, it's like, okay, you're level 72, and then he's like, oh, I think I'll take on the level 98, and it's like, you can't take on the level 98, motherfucker, you only a 72, and he'll just go in there, and then freaking, die, and then it's like really? So this game is all based on counting, and then watching, your character beat up another character solely based on the fact that he has a higher number than you, or you have a higher number than him. I'm like, oh my God. But see, that's how they get you in there. It's like, literally, they play the game wrong and incorrectly so that you can say, oh, I could do better than that, and then you go download the game, and then you buy, and then bam, you get hit with the how heavily monetized. So again, white people know the psychological games. They know this. And I'm saying, let me be specific. The elite white people know the psychological games. The proletariat white people, many of them don't, but because they're white, they just ride the wave and they feed into the bullshit of it all, when it's really about, the elites, maintaining power. And yes, they'll use poor whites as a buffer class. They'll keep them right where they are. I mean, Lyndon B. Johnson. Let me read you Lyndon B. Johnson's statement. Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, poor whites. What did he say? Because everybody loves to read LBJ and his racist statement, about black. Oh, I got these niggers in my back pocket for the rest of the time, right? Because he signed the civil rights bill. So he's like, the Democrats, we got them forever, which really seems like it's true. But this is what LBJ said about poor whites. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. Right? So, again, the white elites, they know. They know. They're not dummies. Right? Even though I think what they're doing right now is quite dumb. But, again, what do I know with my tiny Negro brain? Maybe they're masterminding something much greater on some Dr. Claus shit. Right? But I'm just saying, your average, everyday working, the white people that are in these comment sections that ain't got shit else to do. You know what I mean? And they all come with the same thing. It's like all this canned responses. It's like it's so predictable. When you see this, it's so Fox News. They're like, yeah, right on. Yeah, that's right. I'm a white person, and this comment is fantastic. And you're going somewhere, young man. Like just stupid shit. Stupid shit. And they gobble it the fuck up. You know what I mean? It's just, and you know what gets me about YouTube is like, there's so many of them. There's so many of them that think like this, and it's like, I know some liberals that, I know some dumb liberals, and I know some smart liberals, and, the smart, how do I say this? It's the dumb ones or the smart ones. I'll say the smart ones, I'm like, you should know better, but they're just totally flabbergasted by, how there's so many Trump people or how there's so many of these white folks that just, they have this whole white fragility thing going on. And, they're like, how do they think like, they live in these alternative realities, where they start, bringing up all these conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Like, and they're just blown away how these people can think like that. And I mean, what was I going to say about it? It was something I was going to say about that. Damn, it just slipped my mind. I'm getting tired. That's how I know. Shit starts slipping my mind when I get tired. But damn, there was something I was going to say about that. About when the white liberals come across these white folks that think like that. To me, they're just shocked. They're just like, it's like they thought that logic would prevail. You know what I mean? Like it just reminds me of The Hook with Robert Williams when he was like, when Rufio was in there, he was like, I'm a lawyer. And Rufio was like, kill the lawyer. That shit cracks me up. Kill the lawyer. It's like, we don't give a fuck if you're a lawyer or not. We don't believe what you believe, motherfucker. It was so funny. Wasn't that about belief? You're doing it, Peter. You're doing it. Hook was like one of my favorite, childhood movies. And who was the actor that played Hook? Actor that played Hook. Played Hook. Who was the actor that played Hook? Dustin Hoffman. I think that was Dustin Hoffman's best performance. I mean, really, I think that was his best performance. Let me see Dustin Hoffman now. Let me look at it. Let me look at him up because he's up there. Dustin Hoffman. Played Hook. He actually aged fairly well. Dustin Lee Hoffman. Yeah. Looks good from what these images are saying. But anyway, I'm tired. I'm done. I gotta go because I can feel the sleep washing over me. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.